Here we are, really excited for today's guests. I say that with a plural. This is a different adoption story than we've had so far, but I'll let them tell the story. It's two sisters who I met randomly and separately in the dog park near my house. So, no further ado, I'm going to introduce Laura and Maddie Lillis.
Yay, welcome, girls.
Yay. Thank you. We're excited.
Thank you for being here. I just, as I was saying, it was so random, and then I told Louise. At any rate, I'll let you tell your story. Start off with, what is your connection to adoption?
Good. Okay. Well, so our mom was adopted when she was 5 years old, and she was adopted with her brother. And then, our mom met our dad and they had me, and then my sister Laura, and our other sister Abby. And then shortly after Abby was born, our mom actually left. And although we do not have a relationship with her, we do have a very close relationship with her adoptive parents. Our grandpa passed away, but we're still very close with our grandma. So that's
super tight.
Yeah, we're besties. So that's kind of how that started. And there's other layers too, but that's our primary connection to adoption is our mom. Our mom was adopted.
Did you have a question, Louise?
Well, I was going to say, and so did you end up, when your mom left, who ended up raising you then? Was that your grandmother?
Our dad.
Oh, your dad. Okay.
Our dad raised us. Okay, yeah. So this is where it gets kind of like, it's odd. I think that our grandparents wanted to play a stronger role in our lives, but I don't know. We're not sure where the power struggle kind of came from, but growing up, there was kind of a power struggle between our dad and our grandma. I think just different philosophies for raising kids, basically. And so our grandma, I think not because of her choice, she wasn't as involved in our lives until I went to college and she went to college. And then we went to college pretty close to grandma's house. So we started getting weekly dinners, and she became a huge part of our lives after that.
Yeah.
And do you know a lot of your adoption story about your mom from your grandma?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some pieces from dad, but a lot from grandma.
Quickly, you had said that she was adopted with her brother. Were they biological siblings, and then they were adopted
together?
Together. So, did you know your uncle?
Yeah. So that's kind of we met him once or twice over the years. He was actually in and out of prison. So we don't really know him. Our family tried to keep us at an arm's length of him. So.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's interesting.
No,
because
go ahead. Keep talking.
Yeah, please.
Our grandma did tell us a lot about growing up, the kind of behavioral stuff that our mom and her brother had. And I have listened to your other episodes. And so there were a lot of things that it was cool for me to hear, because of course we have questions that we've never been able to get answered because we don't have contact with our mom. It was cool to hear a lot of like the mother wound and the abandonment stuff that I'm sure our mom and her brother both felt. And so by the time they were adopted, our mom was 5 and her brother was 3. They had already had all these wounds, and it manifested in a lot of different behavioral challenges for our grandparents. And so, yeah, I know their childhood was, I'm sure, tough for them.
Yeah, when you said he was in and out of prison, I was thinking, well, that's interesting because of things Sarah and I have discussed on the other episodes, and even your mom leaving maybe with, no one teaches you how to do this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then what popped into my head too is that then now that legacy continues with her leaving the 3 of you.
Yeah.
Obviously, Maddie, you had a little more time with her, but your youngest sister, how old was she?
6 months.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
She's actually, she was born with special needs. Abby has cerebral palsy. So I'm not sure if the pressure of that kind of triggered our mom in any way. But I also think it's notable to talk about our mom's biological mom, if you want to share about.
Yes.
So our grandma and grandpa raised our mom, and we call them grandma and grandpa. But
Of course.
when mom had Maddie for a couple months, decided she wanted to find out her biological parents. And the only person that knew any of that was our grandma. And our grandma said, well, it's her decision, of course. And so she guided our mom to find her birth mom. Her birth mom had a lot of substance abuse, a lot of issues with that. And basically it was very hard to find her because there was a lot of places that she could have been and could not have been. And they ultimately found her, and she was really, really, really sick. Just, I assume, the substance catching up to her. And our mom decided to have some sort of relationship with her biological mom, and then met the rest of the family through the biological mom.
We actually ended up meeting them as well. So we don't have a running relationship with them, but we did meet our biological grandma, our biological grandpa, and then they actually adopted several kids.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so he remarried, biological grandpa remarried, and they adopted several kids.
Oh, that's
could have lived without meeting them. So
I'll
tell you that now.
Yeah. It's so convoluted, isn't it?
It's so
complicated.
There's so many layers on layers, and yes.
And it's not that she just left and we never talked to her again. Our dad was very, very in love with her and would try to talk to her over the years. So I remember when I was between 7 and 10 having some sort of phone relationship with her. But she really didn't want to be a part of our lives.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
You must have, you seem so, both of you are so bright and happy and smiley. And but there, that must have been a wound. Have you felt that wound? Did you grow up feeling sad? And
yeah, tell us your story a little bit.
Yeah, we have different
perspectives
and different feelings about it. But mine is more like frustration and anger. And Maddie's is more like deeply rooted sadness.
Abandonment. We talked about your previous episodes, and there were so many things that I resonated with. Obviously I wasn't adopted, so I was like, how much do we share? What do we share? But there was so much just with the abandonment wound and the mother abandonment stuff that I was like, wow, I really resonate with that. And hers is, I think, more of a core motherless feeling. And mine was I had a mom, but then I didn't anymore, kind of thing.
Yeah, you're suffering the same. It's it's just passed down.
It's generational trauma, no doubt.
Yeah, it really is. It's very tied together. It's fascinating. And that you have two different experiences and that you can talk about them. That's interesting too.
Yeah, we didn't until we were quite a bit older, until probably a year or two ago. We were able to openly talk about not just the trauma of our mom leaving, but other traumas we experienced in our childhood. And now we have a very open relationship about it.
I think that's what also facilitated the growth of our relationship with our grandma. Once we started asking a little bit more pointed questions and grandma started opening up, we were gaining so much insight, and it really helped our relationship with our grandma go from you guys talked about it, attachment and bond. We were definitely attached to grandma. We loved grandma, but now we are deeply, deeply bonded with grandma, and we feel she's it's hard to say that she's a maternal figure because she wasn't really involved necessarily in our upbringing, but she does feel that way now. Like grandma is who we turn to when we need like motherly love.
And this must make her so happy. I mean,
It does.
I think it does. And
yeah.
that makes us so happy.
Yeah.
As
is,
we like,
is she in touch with your mom?
no, she basically said our mom had reached out to her specifically for financial stability.
mm,
And our grandma said, I will give this to you if you build a relationship with your children. And she never heard from her again.
And the craziest part about this whole little situation, and this is actually quite interesting, and we have mixed feelings about it too, is that we actually know exactly where she is and what she's doing. Our mom,
Social media.
She has a family.
wow.
She had other kids?
Her
No.
stepchildren. Her stepchildren posted about her for Mother's Day and how wonderful she is. And on top of it, so our mom had me when she was 24, and she had a son who she placed for adoption when she was 19. So we also have a half brother out there somewhere.
That's what I was going to ask you, because you sent us a little bit about this, and I'm thinking, are you going to look for your half brother?
She doesn't want to.
She does though. So,
but I'll respect that she doesn't want to.
Yeah.
So, because he could have his whole life and he might not know about us, and that's not fair to him. If we just bombard him like, hey,
you have this many siblings.
Yeah.
So he's how much older than you, Maddie?
So if she had me when she was 24, 5 years older than me, 5 or 6 years.
So she was young.
She was either 18 or 19. Yeah, she was young.
And she put him up for adoption.
Yes,
so he may not even know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, also it's I mean, I think it seems likelier that never mind. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I just often boys develop later and start thinking about that later than we do. Like I was thinking about it all through my 20s, looking, who am I? Where am I from? My brother, it took him a lot longer to come to that conclusion. So maybe that also
spoken about feeling like loyalty to your family. And I can only I think it's the empathy that I have for this boy and his family that keeps me from wanting to reach out in any way. I don't know that this is a can of worms that he necessarily, and vice versa,
Yes.
like we are doing okay. And I just don't want to stir the pot.
Yeah.
Are you on Ancestry or 23andMe or anything like that?
No. We don't want to know.
Well, because that
is the can of worms.
That would be where you'd find out if he was looking for you. That might be how he would be doing it.
I have a feeling we will eventually.
I have a feeling we won't.
Really?
Yeah. Maddie and I have worked so hard to have stability in our life between each other that it doesn't seem like we'll ever try to trouble the waters, And if he reaches out, we would welcome. But I doubt he will, because I doubt he'll ever be able to find our mom. I mean, I just don't think we'll find her.
Wow, that's interesting, because if he got on Ancestry or something, like Sarah said, he might be searching. I mean, it is more rare for boys. We have realized that women sort of do earlier, and until they're a little bit older. Yeah. But if he does know he's adopted, and there might be a time where he's like, oh, well, when
Yeah. What if he doesn't know too?
What if he doesn't know? I've been through that.
His life. It's not ruining his life, but
yeah, we recognize that we're awesome. But yeah, just like
we recognize that too.
We do too.
Feelings mutual. We think you are awesome.
So that would put him in his late 20s then. I don't know how old you guys are. Were you born in the 90s?
Yeah, I'm 25.
And I'm 23. So.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you're my
Sarah-
son's age.
I was going to say, Sarah and I both have 23-year-olds.
Maddie's single.
All right.
Mine is single. Hers is not.
Ah.
In the
But if
wrong
he ever
state.
He's in Texas. How did your dad get remarried?
No.
So you had your single dad raising you.
Yes,
Yeah.
and our grandparents, I talked about this a little bit in like our intro, but the one thing that, there's actually a huge piece that we didn't address. Our grandparents have always supported us financially. It was really hard for our dad to have 3 girls working full time, plus our sister having special needs. And
Yeah.
so our grandparents were hugely involved in our financial stability. And also, this is kind of random, but it was hugely impactful to our development. Every summer, they'd send us to camp. Our grandparents would, just like a couple weeks at a time. And there were a couple of times where we would stay with them while that was happening. And then we always visited them in Florida too, which made us feel a little more normal, because if our friends were going on vacations, we also got a little vacation out of that. So, but otherwise it was totally our dad until I left for college.
Wow.
Wow, he sounds like an incredible guy. I mean, I thought you both mentioned there was some stuff, but you kind of came through
There's
that.
of course some stuff, but we are very grateful. He sacrificed a lot to raise the 3 of us. So,
you were raised in St. Louis?
Area.
Area,
Belleville, Illinois. It's just across the river, so we claim St. Louis.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
My mom's from St. Louis. I have a whole.
Oh, really?
Yep. Got the
Where'd
whole.
she go to high school?
Kirkwood High.
Oh, we love Kirkwood. Love Kirkwood.
We went to undergrad in Chesterfield, so we
Sure.
totally claim St. Louis now.
I love that. My cousins don't like that when they hear that.
And your grandparents are in Florida, you said?
So our grandpa passed away in when did I start college? 2015. Our grandma, they have our whole lives spent like half the year in Florida and half the year in St. Louis.
I guess it was 2014.
I think it was my freshman year of college,
Yeah.
December.
That's a very St. Louis thing, because my grandparents, my grandma, on my mom's side lived in St. Louis, and they spent half the year in Florida, half the year, and all their friends did, all of them.
Or they call themselves something, but yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting.
What was it you said that it was about that you didn't really talk about this stuff until a year or 2 ago? What triggered this that came about to bring all these because to hear you guys talk, I mean, I think you heard in my interview that I knew something was wrong and went to therapy at 20, but it still took many, many years to like connect the dots and all that. You guys sound so mature and enlightened
very
for your age. And I'm just wondering.
It's false.
Well, you're doing great at portraying that.
Yeah. I think we started living together and we started addressing just like traumatic things that have happened to us in general.
We lived together apart from our childhood home. Like, we obviously grew up together, but then I moved out, and once we became roommates again, we started talking about stuff that we'd never really talked about. And we had influence from our dad and everybody else's perspectives. I think we were able to bond over just our perspectives.
Yeah.
Because you didn't know each other's perspectives. I mean, you live in the same, I think, when my brothers and I talk, it's similar. Like, we had our own trauma. And so when we talk about stuff, it's like our memories are different sometimes, or the way we experience things, and it's also subjective. So when you really start comparing notes, it's interesting.
Well, we talk openly like about our mom, and our grandma has things to say and our dad has things to say, and it was like interesting to be like, oh, well, dad said this about mom, and I was like, oh, I thought he said this about mom. And or like our grandma, like our dad has a very, very sour taste in his mouth about our mom.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Yeah, he's totally jaded by the whole situation.
Yeah. And our grandma tends to, she comes from like, I guess, a disappointed perspective of like, I put so much work into this and we loved her and him, no matter
Your
what
uncle.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
So she comes more of like an objective perspective, and our dad comes more at like she's nutty perspective. And I put air quotes around that because I think that she is sick, you know.
Do you think there's so Maddie, you remember more growing up with her. Did she feel, and this is going to be very difficult for you to answer because you were so young, so it's probably maybe a pointless question, but if you can look back knowing what you know now, did you feel like she was a connected mother?
So most of my first memories are of my mom and like bonding with my mom. I can remember her and my dad fighting a lot, and I know that their relationship was really tumultuous. Again, he has his own demons too, so I think it was just like not a great fit.
Yeah.
I think that, and just based on things that our grandma has told us about our mom, I think that mom and her brother probably should have been receiving therapy from the jump. Like they've needed support. They were in foster care my mom was 5 when she was adopted. I'm confident there was abuse somewhere in there.
From the biological home we visited, it was not livable conditions.
No, there's so much trauma there. There's so much trauma. And I think that when they were adopted, our grandpa was, and our grandma is just incredible people. I don't necessarily know that they were equipped for all of the trauma that these kiddos had, you know? And so I don't think that they got the support that they probably needed, not by any fault of our grandparents, just they weren't necessarily educated in that aspect of things.
Very few people were, especially.
Right. Because how old is your mom?
She was 5 when she was adopted.
She is
46 now?
Yeah.
45?
So around the same, I mean,
around our timeline. Yeah.
Born in the 70s, early 70s. It's like they didn't tackle these issues.
They did not tackle
at all.
They just hand the baby over.
And that narrative that we're trying to talk about in this podcast is, it isn't this pretty box wrapped up with bows. Like, oh, you adopted, you're grateful, move on, forget all the rest. It isn't like that. So, and it certainly wasn't like that then.
And like Maddie wants to, like, you guys will ask her, like, were there any things that made you think that she was sick? And our mom was diagnosed bipolar when she was like 17 or 18. She was admitted actually for a while. She was released, and then she met my dad somewhere along the line. But there are things in our childhood that Maddie would be like, oh yeah, I forgot. We would go to the gas station and the guy would like talk sexually about our mom. She would like it. She would like say,
I have blatant memories of our mom like telling me things that I should not have been told, or witnessing things that I should not have been seeing, that I'm sure she thought were totally normal if she were having like a manic episode or something like that. So.
Wow. So much to unpack, huh?
I know. Yeah. I was like,
we're in therapy.
How much are we supposed to talk about? I don't know.
It's really your call, whatever you want to talk about. I just, our goal with this podcast has always been to just tell all adoption stories, anybody who has a connection to it, and how that the generational trauma, that wound, in my case with my birth mother was adopted, then I was adopted, then, and then there was so much trauma after that. And, it's about hearing everybody's story who has a connection to this.
Because it does affect generationally down. I mean, it is, your mother wasn't equipped probably to be a mother. I mean, even if she had your loving grandparents, I mean, coming without any help and coming in at 5 with abuse, and now that we know so much, right, what she's probably suffered, you can look at her in an empathetic way in that way and think, wow.
I think that now like I said, I approach it with anger, but I actually feel really bad.
Yeah, that's, I think, our biggest, we feel it's devastating to think about, especially, so I'm a speech pathologist and she is in grad school for audiology and wants to work with kids.
Oh, that's interesting.
So being around kids this age, it honestly kills me thinking about these little babies who really just needed some support and then didn't get it.
Yeah, if you can see them as the children they were, your uncle and your mom, and what they went through. And then your loving grandparents bringing them in, not equipped for it, giving them all the love in the world, but you can't heal some things like that.
When you just said uncle, I was like, who are you talking
Oh.
about? Because I don't know. I mean, truly,
You don't know them like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's sometimes like a foreign term. Because me and Maddie, when people would ask, like, where's your mom? And I know this sounds horrible, but I would be like, oh, she died. And
that's totally understandable.
People at a bar would be like, oh, tell me about you, or blah, blah, blah. What about your mom? I'll say something about my dad. What about your mom? And I'll joke.
We just kind of deflect.
And that's our way of coping, you know?
Yeah.
So, but
it
when
is
you said uncle,
interesting.
I was like, what?
I had never thought about it literally until you said it, Louise, a second ago, about it's kind of a similar wound. I never really thought about how my mom's mom left her. And then my mom not only had that abandonment wound, but then just like the confusion of that comes along with being adopted and maybe not feeling like she fit in. And she really did just kind of pass that along, which is so interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was just.
And it will break.
No, it is
your generation. You're going to not have this because you are doing this work. And if you're mothers, if you choose to be mothers, or you're not going to have this problem because of look how healthy you two are approaching everything. But your mom didn't have that, and she had mental illness, and I mean, just the things that go. It's a lot of dice there to roll.
And I wanted to. I was thinking as you were saying, well, like she has stepchildren. They posted her on Facebook on Mother's Day.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I would venture to guess that she has so much guilt and shame for leaving you that might be a reason why she just can't talk to you.
We think the opposite sometimes. We're like, are we just that insignificant kind of
which
thing?
Of course that we're wounded. So we're like, wow.
I have that same wound of feeling insignificant. And I'm,
yes.
This past Mother's Day was hard for some reason. Usually we do okay, but this past Mother's Day was really, really tough. And it took everything in my body not to message her or her new family and be like, hello.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm the oldest.
Yeah. Guess what? Your wife's a liar. But you won't.
I took comfort in the fact that if she is stable and making these people feel loved, then that brings me at least some peace. I would much rather her be,
that's very mature.
being a loving mom figure. I'm so glad that she can be that for these kids, and my own sadness is my own thing, and I would never project that on a single.
I went right to where Sarah went, and thinking, because we have been mothers and we're older than you, thinking, oh, she's got so much shame and guilt. She can't deal with you, because I can see your point of view. Of course, you're insignificant, and how painful. I mean, how painful. I can't even imagine. But from her point of view, I'm thinking just even the mistakes we've made in motherhood. It's
so my mom left, my adopted mom. And I know she's going to be listening to this episode. And I grew up thinking, oh, she didn't care, or I'm insignificant, or, she got remarried and moved off to Florida, and, all the stuff that I told myself. And now, I've heard from her that was up. She thought we were off living this okay life and didn't need to be in, that we were perfectly happy and had forgotten about her. So I'm kind of speaking from what I know that she feels and what
an interesting perspective for sure. Yeah. There's all kinds of layers.
The conditions she left us in, it was very clear what she left us in. And I think that's because she probably, like you said, your adopted mom was like, oh, they're probably doing great and fine. Our mom knew what she left us in.
Yeah.
So
I think it's also very clear that our wounds have manifested in different ways. Which is why we have a good dynamic. She's got all the backbone.
Well,
Sarah and I have the same dynamic.
I'm just going to throw this out there that if you need a loving local mom, I'd be happy to have you guys over for dinner. And
when she said that she ran into you, I was like, it would be
I
really
love that.
nice to have just like a mentor, somebody that like understands and empathizes. And so I was like, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I will invite you guys over, or you know,
We
that
love
sounds
it.
like a great
We're super
plan.
And when I visit Sarah, we're all going out and seeing.
Yes.
I know that Maddie was talking to me earlier about your podcast and how like there's this discomfort around birthdays.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And there was something that you had said, like an event that like, maybe I'm thinking of something else, but we both have like felt this unreal discomfort around our birthdays. And I always thought it was because, so our mom, when we had the telephone relationship with her, I was angry with her at that point too. And my dad was like, talk to your mom. And so I would take the phone. Maddie would never talk to her. Never. It was
just
always
different
me.
wounds, totally different wounds.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
we were making statements in different way. Maddie was making a statement of, no, if you care, you'll come here. And I was making a statement of, okay, well, I'm going to quiz you. When's my birthday? And she didn't know my birthday.
Oh.
And I was like, how do you forget the day you gave birth? Like, that's so significant.
Wow.
And so I always feel as if I thought I felt the discomfort because of that. But then it's knowing that it's like all these other people are feeling this discomfort and like disappointment.
Birthdays,
almost.
and I remember you saying something about maybe it was somebody's, I can't remember who said it, but somebody's child, I think, said that they felt a weird, almost dysphoria around a certain time of year, and they weren't really sure why.
Oh, as a person in the book that we're reading.
Oh, the primal wound. Yeah.
Yes.
I've always felt super dysphoric at the beginning of October, and I've made it a point at the beginning of October, every October for like 7 years, like this is going to be a good October. But no matter what I do, my emotions are just, I cannot pick myself up. And our mom left like October 1st when we were little. So I don't know if I'm carrying that
I bet
cellularly or whatever, but I
Yes,
was like,
I'm sure.
when I heard it.
Not a therapist, but I would think so. Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
not
it's
a
around your
therapist.
birthday and she left. I mean, that's, yeah, you are carrying that. We just
It's
planned
so
on the
great that you guys have each other, and you're working through this stuff, and you know it's a long process. Let's just face it. Like, but you're starting so young. You know, a lot of
I
people
know.
don't. You know, they reach peak. You know, alcoholism and addiction, and or you know, bad relationship after bad relationship, or this and that, and then they finally pick themselves up at 40 and try to start something. You guys are really have a leg up. It's really.
Well, that actually has to go to Maddie. Maddie has done literally all the groundwork on like self-growth and like healing basically. But I also know that when I got to grad school, and I think Maddie's grad school did this too, you get like free therapy and free psychiatry basically because of the stressors of school. And then when I started like going to this for school, they were like, okay, well then tell me about this. And then, you know, all of this is surfaced.
That's the first time I went to therapy as well. I was in graduate school.
Really?
Because I was under a lot of stress
too.
and they had a free clinic and I thought, well, I should use that.
Yeah. And then
High
it
school dropout.
surfaced way more stuff. But we were like, oh.
But you found therapy young, Sarah, which is interesting because
Yeah, that's young.
she did. That wasn't the trend when we were that age, you know?
No, definitely wasn't. But I just did a lot of lip service and didn't do the deep work until later. But at least I was aware that there was something wrong. It just took a long time to.
Yeah.
I went initially trying to do I was in a relationship and I was like, do I stay or do I go?
Oh, yeah. You just want an answer.
And then I cried the whole intake. and it was like, oh, I think there's maybe some other things we should probably talk about too. So, yeah.
Oh, this is actually really fascinating because I feel like we could spend hours really looking into all the different layers of this. And
definitely.
Well, it'd also be nice to come back.
Yeah, I was thinking this.
Revisit with you guys, you know, I don't know, 6 months from now or wherever we're going to be with the podcast. And
maybe have your grandma ever come on?
Oh, I think she would.
Would she?
There are things that I specifically try to keep separate from like our dad and my grandma.
Yeah.
And
Understandable.
Yeah.
Especially like they have very sour tastes about therapy and anything. I told so this is an overshare, but I was diagnosed with ADHD this year because I was having all these troubles in school. And I would I can't tell my grandma because I already know that she would say I'm full of shit, basically. And my dad was like, well,
That's that's generational.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And our dad would be like, well, don't abuse the drugs. And I'm like, really? So there are things that we will tell you anything that they tell us, but I would prefer not to get them involved.
Yeah, of course.
Totally fine.
I know that
we know all this.
All our biases, and our grandma's a lovely human being.
I think she'd do it,
but I just don't even want to do it because then she'll say, well, why are you telling people all of your personal business? They don't.
Oh, for sure.
There's definitely a divide in our trajectory of trying to heal and their trajectory of I've totally compartmentalized this part of my life. I don't.
And your grandma's St. Louis, so
I was just gonna say that's very, very Midwestern.
My mom passed, but I probably wouldn't be doing this podcast if she was still alive because she'd be more worried about who might hear, not because she wouldn't want me to do the podcast, but who might hear what.
Who might hear it.
We can't write a book because our dad would be effing pissed.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Nothing makes me more mad than the term of what happens in the home stays in the home.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's literally you hiding abuse. Stop saying that.
Write whatever you want and say whatever you want. It is your life and your voice to get out there and your experiences and whatever it
took us a long time to figure this out.
Yeah. And whatever, that's what stopped me from writing certain things too. And now a podcast is perfect because I don't think my dad would even know what a podcast was. So
our dad does, but we're not telling him.
I think this is awesome. I was listening and I was thinking of all of the friends that I have that would love to hear these perspectives or would be great guests that I am of course going to send them your way. But yeah,
thank you.
I love this project and the premise of it. It's awesome.
Well, it's been fascinating. Like even you were talking about siblings, how you have different experiences. My brother was not adopted. He's 5 years older than me. He's super happy Sarah and I are doing this podcast for us, but I don't think A, he listens. B, he doesn't want to be on the show.
We've had a few listens in Tucson.
We've had a few listens, but
I will.
I will if you're listening. But it's that same. He's sort of from my parents in that way of like, you don't need to share. Why are you sharing all this stuff? But he's proud of me. But he's like, why are you sharing all this stuff?
Yeah.
So it's different.
It is. I feel keeping it locked inside and is very unhealthy and damaging. And
it's interesting because my whole life, at least in regard to adoption specifically, again, our dad's perspective is very jaded. And it wasn't until we got out of the house and into the world that I had started questioning any of the advice he'd given us. But he essentially always told us, is this too much? Told us not to adopt. He told me not to adopt. Just don't adopt.
Wow.
And he told us that our whole lives.
And then now that we're so of course we were always.
Because you're interested in adopting, you said, actually.
And I was never.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually, it was one of my biases. I would try my hardest to almost be even more open to people when I meet them and they say they were adopted, because I knew in the back of my mind I had a guard just because of what our dad had told us. And now that I've been out of the house several years and I've questioned so many of these things, and I'm 25 and we've talked about it, I think I would literally love to adopt. And I think that's possibly where I'm getting emotional.
Oh. Well, any child would be lucky if you adopted them. Honestly, that's.
I just think it would be really nice. So
it would be nice.
It's just interesting because it's just
it is a beautiful. I had a really great situation. It is a beautiful thing, and you can really. I mean, what now too, you'd be so amazing for a child that there's so many children in need.
Amazing mom. Keep telling her that because she thinks that she's not going to be a great mom. You'd be a great mom to literally any sort of gremlin.
Yes, we call our dogs gremlins. That's everybody's gremlin.
Yeah.
Oh, I am so happy to have found you guys.
Me
I feel like
too. Good job, Sarah.
and
I'm
now
just happy to know you.
I have two surrogate, nieces or something
Aw, that's sweet. I
across
love that.
a street. And I would love to, I mean, I miss my son so much. So it'd be just great to be
Yeah.
around you guys. And
We'd love that. I think part of our like mom abandonment is like, yes, please.
Yes.
That sounds awesome.
We typically don't talk to people either. I know that sounds weird, but there was something like in Aura saying, you could talk to her. She's safe.
it was the strangest thing. And then
Comforting.
Sarah
then
is
why
like that. Sarah's like that.
and then also just why I even said I've got to go record a podcast. Like I don't tell people that in the dog park, but for some reason I told you that. So
She came and told me immediately. Like, I talked to these wonderful. Well, it was just you, Maddie, at first, right?
no, Laura. It was Laura.
Oh, Laura
then
first,
Maddie.
and
Yeah.
and she was just like, and I loved her, and she was just so neat. We have to have her on the podcast. I'm like, okay, I'm so excited, and just she felt the same way. And Sarah doesn't talk to everybody either all the time, but she does have something about her where you tell her everything.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
When I first met her, I told her like all these. I'm like, I am telling her all these things.
Yeah.
playing pool. I like told her like my whole life story.
We were a little worried. I was, again, so I listened to all of your episodes and was like sitting preparing, and Laura was like cooking her dog food and just absolutely nonchalant. But
They had a long day at clinic. Like, I'm just going to tell them what they want to know.
Well, and we don't really prepare as much as you would think like we do when we read our chapters, but we want it to be authentic, like an authentic conversation.
I was
and
worried
organic.
that we weren't going to have enough to share in regard to adoption. And then when I sat down and thought about it, I was like, oh, we're so indirectly impacted in so many
hugely.
ways.
We have
Yes.
this joke that like our mom basically abandoning us isn't the trauma. Our trauma is from our dad. But we are very traumatized. Right.
From the abandonment mom part too.
We're
Yeah.
traumatized by both. So yeah. We'll be grandparents.
Yeah, because here's our ad. His wounds. Your dad was hurt by your mom, who then
And
pushes
probably
that
had his own other stuff anyway.
Yeah. Yes.
Just compounded his other stuff.
and coping
Yeah.
with three girls, and it's a lot. I
Yeah.
mean,
Where is Abby?
She is in care. Our dad takes full care of her.
Oh, he
Oh.
does.
So in Belleville.
Mhm.
Okay.
And he has sacrificed his basically career to take care of all of us. So we are grateful.
Yeah, we love our dad.
To
You know
say that,
you
like,
can empathize with him too. Like he was going through it. It's just as adults now we know what we were and we're not supposed to absorb from that. So
oh, I'm sure, and he probably has his regrets over that. I mean, that's
does he? I'm just kidding.
you two are awesome.
My anxiety level when she starts, I'm like,
Maddie's not very good at sharing. I always was like, oh yeah, this happened. And she's like, people weren't supposed to know that. Oh yeah. That didn't happen to everyone. So
You have the Midwestern thing. You got to guard it a little, right? So.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Really,
oh my gosh, this was awesome.
I just felt so moved and I'm just excited. I don't even know what side of the building you're on, but I can wave at you probably.
We're literally on the opposite side.
Oh, okay.
We're in my room.
We're
now.
waving too though.
We're waving into the wall.
So, go ahead, Louise.
I was just going to say, so this may wrap it up, but I think I really thank you for coming on, because I think this perspective is really good for a lot of people, not just, I mean, we didn't want to just have adoptees on the show, and because that's fascinating, of course, but there's so many layers to different people are affected by adoption.
Yeah.
We want to have siblings and all sorts of
Everybody's affected, that this one decision and then the
blossoms.
ripple effect of decisions,
It's
and
super interesting.
yeah, it is.
best
It's
part-
fascinating.
Of our situation, I think, as just specifically in regard to adoption, is if you could give me 1 million grandmas in the world, I still would have picked our grandma.
Yeah.
So
Aw.
we feel really, really
I
lucky.
love that.
And yeah, I mean, we wouldn't I wouldn't change the scenario. You know, like me and Maddie have a really strong bond. And I think if our mom would have been present, that it would have been different. Or if our mom wasn't adopted, it would have been different.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Maddie has completely changed on her perspective of adopting children. You know, like she is like, no, I think I would love to do that. And I was like, you'd be a great mom to literally a toe. Like, I don't know. So I wouldn't take back any of it, you know?
And also, well, first of all, living in, regret or any of that is a waste of time and energy.
Right.
But also it made you who you are
Yes.
now. And, who you shine through that we're seeing in this brief amount of time, just are incredible people.
Lovely
And it looks like
people.
you're doing to give back to the world anyway. Your career choice and the way you openly talk, and, it's great. It's great.
Right back at you, both of you.
It's a gift. It's a gift.
Well, we will definitely be in touch for
Yes.
sure.
Okay.
And
New
we can't wait
daughters.
for this. Yeah, new daughters.
My new daughters.
I love
Yeah.
that.
I want to share in that. I love it. I love it. And you two are wonderful. And I'm really happy to meet you. This has been
We're happy to
great.
meet you too. We really are.
back at
We
you.
were. I was
Yeah.
nervous.
I-
It's so much better.
No.
You guys were awesome. Like, really great. You're going to move a lot of people.
Yes.
I think this is going to be really moving for people.
That's
Oh,
so
sure.
nice.
Yeah, that was so
What?
sweet. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
I'll see you soon.
Bye.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Bye.